In 1810, Cornelius Vanderbilt was born into poverty on Staten Island. No education, no inheritance, no connections. By the time he died in 1877, he was worth $105 million, equivalent to $200 billion today. Richer than Rockefeller at his peak, richer than Carnegie, the wealthiest American who ever lived at that point in history. He didn't invent anything. He didn't discover resources. He didn't build a better product. He built through a 5-stage pattern of ruthless elimination that made competition structurally impossible. Undercut prices until competitors bled out. Buy them at distressed prices. Consolidate. Repeat. This is the pattern he used in steamships, then railroads, then everything he touched. A blueprint for dominance through economic warfare that every monopolist since has studied. Once you see how it works, you understand why markets consolidate, why alternatives disappear, and why kindness loses to calculation. Ruthlessness in business isn't what people think. It's not cruelty. It's not aggression for its own sake. Real ruthlessness is structural. It's building systems where competitors lose money by existing while you profit from their struggle. Not because you're smarter, because you've engineered cost structures where their survival requires capital they don't have and time markets won't give them. That's what Vanderbilt understood. He didn't compete. He made competition unsustainable. On the surface, markets looked open. Multiple ferry companies, multiple railroads, prices fluctuating, new entrants trying their luck. But beneath that, Vanderbilt was systematically removing every path to profitability until only one option remained: sell to him now or go bankrupt later. This is the pattern Vanderbilt followed: 5 stages, each one building irreversible advantage. Stage 1, enter underpriced, launch service at prices competitors can't match without losing money. Stage 2, endurance war, sustain losses longer than anyone else can through superior capital reserves or alternate revenue streams. Stage 3, competitor capitulation, acquire failing competitors at distressed valuations, absorbing their assets and customers. Stage 4, price correction. Once competition is eliminated, raise prices to profitable equilibrium and lock in customers. Stage 5, barrier construction. Use accumulated capital and infrastructure to make new competition structurally impossible. Vanderbilt moved through all 5 stages in ferries by age 30. Then he did it again in steamships. Then again in railroads. Same pattern, different industries, identical results. Vanderbilt's first application of the pattern was ferries between Staten Island and Manhattan. In 1810, ferry service was controlled by a state-granted monopoly run by competitors charging high fares for poor service. At 16, Vanderbilt bought a small sailboat for $100 borrowed from his mother. He undercut the monopoly's prices by half. Customers flooded to him. The monopoly sued, claiming their exclusive charter made his service illegal. Vanderbilt kept operating. The monopoly couldn't compete on price and couldn't enforce their legal monopoly fast enough. Within 2 years, Vanderbilt controlled the majority of ferry traffic. The monopoly offered to buy him out. He refused. Instead, he bought them out when they went bankrupt. By age 20, he owned the ferry system. This was stage 1 through stage 3 in 18 months. Enter underpriced, endure their legal and price war, acquire them when they collapsed. Vanderbilt's second application was steamships. In the 1830s, steamship service between New York and Albany was dominated by a cartel of established operators who coordinated prices and controlled docking rights. Vanderbilt approached them with an offer: pay me not to compete, and I'll stay out of your market. They refused. He launched service at $1 per ticket. The cartel charged $3. They tried to undercut him. He dropped to 50 cents. They couldn't sustain losses at that level. Within 18 months, 2 of the largest operators were bankrupt. Vanderbilt bought their ships at auction for 20 cents on the dollar. He then raised prices back to $2.50. No competition remained. The original cartel that refused his buyout offer now paid him $5,000 per month not to compete, more than he would have asked for initially. This was the full pattern executed perfectly. Enter underpriced, outlast, acquire, correct prices, and extract rent from the survivors. Vanderbilt's third and largest application was railroads. In the 1860s, American railroads were fragmented, dozens of small lines, incompatible track gauges, regional monopolies charging high rates. Vanderbilt saw the same opportunity he'd seen in ferries and steamships. He began buying railroads in 1862, starting with the New York and Harlem Railroad. He didn't buy it to run trains. He bought it to control access to Manhattan. Then he bought the Hudson River Railroad, then the New York Central. Each acquisition gave him infrastructure competitors needed to access markets. If you wanted to ship goods into New York, you used Vanderbilt's railroads, or you didn't ship. He set rates, he controlled schedules, he decided who got access. Competitors either sold him at his price or watched their traffic disappear as he rerouted shipments through his own lines. By 1867, he controlled every major rail line into New York City. By 1877, he controlled 10,000 miles of track and owned the most valuable transportation network in America. This was Stage 4 and Stage 5 combined, price correction and barrier construction at continental scale. Here's the thesis. Vanderbilt didn't build wealth through better service or innovation. He built it through systematic elimination of competition using price warfare and capital endurance. And we're watching the exact same pattern unfold in technology, logistics, and retail today. Vanderbilt completed all 5 stages in each industry he entered. Modern platform monopolies are on Stage 4. Uber, Amazon, DoorDash. They all launched underpriced, sustained massive losses for years, drove competitors out, acquired the survivors, and are now raising prices with no viable alternatives remaining. The mechanics are identical. The only difference is that Vanderbilt used ferries and railroads. Modern monopolies use apps and logistics networks. Same pattern, same result. Here's what Stage 4 looks like in practice. Once competition is eliminated, prices rise to extract maximum value from locked-in customers. Vanderbilt did this with ferry fares after consolidation. Uber did this with ride prices after destroying taxi medallion systems. Amazon did this with seller fees after capturing retail market share. DoorDash did this with restaurant commissions after drivers and customers were locked into the platform. The pattern is always the same. Lose money to eliminate competition, then extract profit from the absence of alternatives. Stage 5 is when new competition becomes structurally impossible because the infrastructure required to compete is owned by the incumbent. Vanderbilt owned the railroads and the docking rights. Amazon owns the logistics warehouses and the customer data. Google owns the search index and the ad distribution layer. You can't compete without replicating the entire infrastructure, and that requires capital and time that markets won't provide. Objection 1. Vanderbilt succeeded because railroads were unregulated. Modern markets have antitrust enforcement. Counter, Vanderbilt operated during the Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, which was created specifically to regulate railroad monopolies. Regulation existed. Enforcement lagged consolidation by decades. Modern monopolies have been under antitrust investigation for over 10 years with no breakup. Law exists. Enforcement lags structure. Objection 2. Vanderbilt's tactics were ruthless, but consumers benefited from lower prices. Counter, Vanderbilt lowered ferry prices from 25 cents to 12 cents to eliminate competition. Once competitors were gone, he raised them to 37 cents and kept them there for 20 years. Low prices are predatory until alternatives are eliminated. Then prices reflect monopoly power, not efficiency. Objection 3. Vanderbilt built infrastructure that wouldn't have existed otherwise, so his monopoly was justified. Counter, infrastructure built through monopoly serves the monopolist first. Vanderbilt's railroads prioritized routes that maximized his profit, not public access. When towns refused his terms, he bypassed them entirely, destroying their economies to force compliance. Here's why this matters now. Vanderbilt's pattern took decades because infrastructure was physical: ships, railroads, docks. Modern monopolies move through the same stages in 5 years because infrastructure is digital. Network effects compound faster. Customer lock-in happens through data, not geography. Once a company controls the distribution layer, the app store, the fulfillment network, the payment rails, competition requires replicating the entire system. That's not a high barrier. That's a structural impossibility. And here's the irreversibility problem. Even if you break up a monopoly, the customer relationships, the infrastructure, the brand equity, all of that remains. Vanderbilt's New York Central was broken up in the 20th century. Within 15 years, it had reconsolidated into Conrail. The breakup didn't reverse dominance, it just renamed it. So what changes the trajectory? Not consumer choice. Vanderbilt's competitors offered better service and failed because price warfare made sustainability impossible when one player has deeper capital reserves. Not innovation. Vanderbilt wasn't technologically superior. He was financially structured to survive losses longer than anyone else. Not market forces. Markets reward efficiency, and monopoly is efficient for the monopolist. What works? Intervention before stage 4 is complete. Prohibiting below-cost pricing designed to eliminate competition. Mandating infrastructure access for competitors at cost. Preventing acquisitions of competitors once market share exceeds a threshold. The window is narrow. Once stage 5 is reached, once alternatives are structurally impossible, intervention becomes breakup, and breakup doesn't reverse accumulation. Vanderbilt proved that. In 1810, Cornelius Vanderbilt had nothing. By 1877, he had $105 million, worth $200 billion today. Not because he built better ferries or faster trains, because he built a system where competition became economically unsustainable. That's not history. That's the active blueprint. Uber loses billions, eliminates taxis, then raises prices. Amazon loses billions, eliminates retail stores, then raises seller fees. DoorDash loses billions, eliminates restaurant negotiating power, then raises commissions. Same 5 stages, same result. If you want to understand how markets actually consolidate, not the theory, the mechanics, subscribe to Wealth Archives. We break down the patterns of wealth and power that repeat across industries and centuries. Comment below. Which modern company is running the Vanderbilt playbook right now? New episodes posted regularly. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it.